W5FC. TechNet Saturday at 7 p.m. W5FC.
Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Anyone need to use the repeater before we begin the 9 p.m. Skynet? This is KF5 PDF. My name is Billy, and I'll be your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the # break in your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.880 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. And remember to tell others about this popular net. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. The net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. General announcements, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events, where and when you can look through a telescope, National Space Society events, discussion topic of the evening, Was Up, space exploration and space history, Constellation of the week, space launches of the week, recent astronomical discoveries, visible satellite passages over the next couple of days, astronomical Q&A, and our 73 round. All amateurs that are licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. And so at this time, I will turn the net over to my alternate net control, Tom, KE5ICX. If you'll do the check-in honors, please.
Thank you, Miss Billy, and thank you for doing the net this evening. This is KE5ICX, Kilo Echo 5 India Charlie X-Ray. My name's Tom. I'll be your alternate net control this evening, so let's go ahead and get started. I will take low-power short-time check-ins. If you're one of those, please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, where you're transmitting from. Let me know if you're low-power short-time.
This is Whiskey 5, Golf, Uniform Sierra, Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power.
All right, just got a lone check-in, W5GUS, it's Gus, far northeast Dallas, low power. Any additional low-power short-time, please come down. let's move on to general check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
November 5 Bravo Bravo. Bill in Irving.
This is Alpha Golf 5, Papa Mike, Rich in Rockwall.
This is Kilo India 5, Golf Romeo Hotel, Melissa in Dallas Mobile.
We're slow getting started, but I'm sure it'll pick up. I've got N5VB, Mr. Bill in Irving. Thanks for doing a great net earlier. For TechNet, AG5PM, that's Rich in Walkwall. KI5GRH, Miss Melissa over in Dallas. Additional check-ins come now.
This is Kilo Foxtrot 5, Juliet Hotel Alpha, Chaz, Mesquite.
Kilo Golf 5, uniform, Kilo uniform. David, Mesquite.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony in Dallas, not Mesquite.
Pete.
Kilo 5, Kilo Tango X-Ray, Kelly in Quinlan.
Kilo Bravo 5, Delta Mike, Brian in Roanoke.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brendan DeSoto.
Kilo 5, Alpha November, Allen in Dallas.
Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jane in Wilford.
Kilo Golf 5, Whiskey, Victor Lima, James in Carrollton.
November 8 Lima Bravo, Larry, Rockwall County, no traffic.
All right, let me go ahead. There's pause in the action. Let me get everybody checked in. There were 2, maybe 3 doubles, so if you don't hear your call, you were covered over, so I'll get you on this next round. KF5JHA, Chaz in Mesquite. I got KG5UKU, David in Mesquite. NT5TM, Tony, not in Mesquite. He says he's in Dallas. K5KTX, Miss Kelly in Quinlan. KB5DM, that's Brian in Roanoke. WB50ZL, Miss Brenda DeSoto. The next call, I may need a Phil. I've got K5 Alpha November, Alan in Dallas. I think it's ANP. Alan, did I get your call right?
That is correct. K5 AMP.
All right, I was really sure, but I wanted to go ahead and make sure. KG5BZW, that's Jade near Weatherford. KG5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James in Carrollton. And November 8th, Lima Bravo, that's Larry in Rockwall County. Additional check-ins, please come now.
November 5, Oscar Foxtrot, Clay in Mesquite.
This is for 2 Sierra Charlie Echo, Stephen in Fort Worth. This is Kilo Golf 5, Alpha Papa Lima, Patrick in Dallas.
I picked up 3 more. I will need a fill on one of them. I've got N50F Clay in Mesquite, and then I've got Stephen in Fort Worth, Sierra Charlie Echo. Could I get your prefix, Stephen?
That's November 2, Sierra Charlie Echo.
Very good. I've got you. N2SCE, Stephen in Fort Worth. I just want to die and say try SCE to aux, but that's a whole nother thing. And I got KG5APL, that's Patrick near Dallas. Or in Dallas, I'm sorry. Any additional over air before I go to Echolink? Over air, please come down. All right, hearing none, let me go ahead and go to Echolink. If you're on Echolink and would like to be checked in by voice, please do so now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. If you don't have voice, just put in the chat window that you'd like to be acknowledged. Echolink only, please come now.
Zero, Mike, Bravo, Charlie, Shane.
And that means the same day.
Kilo 5, Juliet, Delta Whiskey, John in Norman, Oklahoma.
I picked up 2 more. That's over on Echolink. I got actually 3. I've got W0MBC, that's Shane and Bethany. And I got K5JDW John over in Norman. Okay, I'll go ahead and open it. One more round. Any mode, any place, please come with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from.
Kilo X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot, Sean from Benton, no traffic.
And we pick up one more. That's Sean, Kilo X-Ray 7, Whiskey Tango Foxtrot over in Denton. I have you checked in. All right, very good. I'll send it back to Net Control. We've got 22 check-ins so far. KE5ICX.
Excellent. Thank you, Tom, and welcome to all who have checked in on Skynet. All right, we'll move on and get our program started with general announcements. So do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. If you have an announcement, please come now with your call sign.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
C5CM, Tony, good evening. What announcements do you have for us this evening?
Good evening, Billy. It's always great to hear you. I'd like to remind everyone that this is not the last net of the evening, and I know Tom will have more to say. If you too are afraid of moon Nazis, then our Afterglow movie discussion tonight is the net for you. We'll be talking about the 2012 movie Iron Sky. It was a strange one. But if moon Nazis are your thing or are not your thing, it really doesn't matter to me, because this Monday, on this repeater at 7 p.m., we'll be having the fourth Monday GeekNet. This is our chance to geek out about anything, whether it's ham radio related or not. Your topics and comments and questions and news of the word are very welcome. I'm going to be talking about the 2020 Ig Nobel Prizes, for the kind of wacky stuff like giving Prozac to shellfish that kind of makes you laugh, but then it makes you think. So your stuff is welcome, and I'll be talking about the Ig Nobels GeekNet this Monday at 7 right here on 14688 NT5TM.
Thank you, Tony. Always a fun time on GeekNet. Are there any other announcements? If so, please come now with your call sign. Not hearing any, so I'll go ahead with a few announcements of my own. The AMSAT Radio Amateur Satellite Group has 2 nets available to Dallas residents on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time. You'll need Echolink installed and you registered. You can find the net under Groups and AMSAT. Also, a live audio link is available on their website at www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston, Texas. The Dallas AMSAT net, East Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.880 megahertz, TL tone 110.9 Tuesdays. Tom N5HYT is the net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesday of the month is DARC Club Night, no AMSAT East night. Dallas AMSAT net, Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas, is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington repeater, 147.140 megahertz, with a PL tone of 110.9 and a positive offset. The DARC hosts several Monday night nets. First Monday of the month is Ham Fixin's net. If you enjoy gathering recipes or sharing recipes, have a question about food or anecdote about food, join us for Ham Fixin's net. The second Monday of the month is MCOM 101, Emergency Communications. The third week, come back for a second helping of Ham Fixin's net. And fourth week, as Tony mentioned, GeekNet. Sometimes on Mondays we have a fifth Monday, in which case there will be a surprise net. If I told you what it was, it wouldn't be a surprise. You've got to be on air to participate. So it's always a pleasant surprise on the fifth week Monday surprise net. Again, Tuesdays, AMSAT East is 8 p.m., which is Q&As, info, and news. Let's see, Fridays, CERT simulation, CERT City, 7:30 p.m. Learn about emergency radio communication via CERT-trained amateur radio operators. Melissa, KI5, GRH, visit the most disaster-prone city in the universe every Friday, CERT City. And Saturdays is the Night of Nets with TechNet from 7 to 8 p.m. and, of course, at 9 p.m., Skynet. And the first and third Sundays, Dallas Amateur Radio Club meeting on the air. Daily, you can find a lunch bunch, 12 noon, Monday to Friday, survey question, and eat lunch with us. And as always, ARRL Net, National Traffic System Training Net, is every night at 6:30 p.m. Central Time. And all are welcome to check in on any or all of these nets. And as Tony mentioned, after Skynet at 10:30 is the Afterglow Movie Net. For those that are new, we pick a movie at the end of the Afterglow Movie Net. We watch it during the week, and then we come back and discuss that movie on the following Afterglow Movie Net. So tonight, as Tony mentioned, Iron Sky is the movie, but I'll let Tom give you more info, give you tonight's Afterglow info. So Tom, KE5ICX, if you will please share tonight's Afterglow info.
Thank you, Miss Billy. This is KE5ICX, Pencils Down. Washington slowly adjusted the descent thrusters, and with incredible care, the first lunar landing in half a century was in the books. He shut the engines off and prepared for the lunar egress. Everyone at NASA, and especially the astronaut, wondered how Tom Hanks would portray Washington in what would most certainly be an HBO TV series. Washington dreamed about thoughtful narrative, inspiring music, and Tom Hanks himself wheeling confidently into the studio, expertly maneuvering his electric wheelchair, talking endlessly about how as a child he played with Major Mason dolls and imagined landing on the moon. A rambling story every Apollo astronaut endured when within 100 feet of the famous actor or director. It was the story which propelled him into moviedom and an endless source of cash. Astronauts also like money. But the entire thing went poof when Washington, now stepping onto the lunar regolith, transmitted his first words. That's one small step for a man, one, but before he could finish the epic statement, a man on a motorcycle with stylish sidecar interrupted him, Space Luger in hand. Halt! Treten Sie mit Ihrer Bovenheiten van Mannen weg. Halt. Step away from the lunar lander with your hands up. Join us for probably the weirdest SF Afterglow movie we have ever reviewed, Iron Sky from 2012, tonight at 10:30 p.m. Back to net control.
Great. Thank you very much, Tom. You can keep up with all the DARC events, nets, and activities by going to the club website, w5fc.org. All right, let's move on to our next segment, Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas events. Look through a telescope. If someone on frequency would like to give information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, please come now with your call sign.
KF5JHA.
5JHA, Tara is our resident professional astronomer. Go ahead and give us some information about the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas.
Thank you, Billy. Last night at 7:30 p.m. was the most recent meeting of the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. It was another virtual meeting using Zoom. We didn't have a speaker at the meeting, but instead we had a swap meet. Now, the swap meet is when members bring to the meeting their unwanted, gently used equipment and sell it. It went pretty well. The next Task Club meeting will be on October 23rd at 7:30 p.m. with a guest speaker of David Eicher. David Eicher is an American editor, writer, and popularizer of astronomy and space. He has been the editor-in-chief of Astronomy magazine since 2002. He's the author and co-author of, or edited, of 23 books on science and American history, and is known for having founded a magazine on astronomical observing, Deep Sky Monthly, when he was only 15 years old and a high school student. David's most recent book is Galaxies Inside the Universe's Star Cities. Task Club members will receive an email link to the meeting about a week in advance of the meeting. And hopefully the Task will resume having face-to-face meetings and maybe have public observing sessions after all this shelter-in-place is over. Check their website, texasastro.org, for details. That's all I've got, Billy. It's back to you. KF5JHA.
Thank you very much, Chaz. I appreciate it. This is KF5 TDS. Billy, your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up is National Space Society events and activities. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to 5BB if you'll give us information about the National Space Society.
Thank you very much, Billy. This is N5BB. I happen to be the membership director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. If you have any interest in the National Space Society, you can simply send me an email, and a good one for that is space@byrom.net. That's S-P-A-C-E at Byrom, that's B-Y-R-O-M.net. Or, of course, N5BB at ARRL.net will also reach me. Before I talk about National Space Society things, Bill Brady, KF5ZBL, reminded us on Echolink that we will not have a AMSAT Net East this coming Tuesday. It's the last Tuesday of the month, but there's some conflicts. Of course, there's a big one. 8 o'clock on Tuesday is the first presidential debate. So we're not going to have the AMSAT Net East this coming Tuesday. And the Tuesday after that is the first Tuesday of October, which the net will not occur because of the DARC meeting. So that means the next AMSAT East net on this repeater will be on Tuesday, October the 13th. Okay, so after that little bookkeeping thing, National Space Society normally meets on the second Sunday afternoon of every month. But we can't have an in-person meeting because of coronavirus issues. So all public events have been actually formally put on pause by the National Space Society in general for now. So we do have, though, a monthly meeting on WebEx, and I host that meeting. The next meeting will be on Sunday afternoon, October the 11th. This is about 2 weeks from today. It's actually 2 weeks from tomorrow. The topic may interest some of you. It's going to be about Mars and about spacesuit materials. Amy Ross, who is, I believe, the chief, she has a top position dealing with spacesuits at NASA JPL in Houston. She's been there a while. She's also the daughter of Jerry Ross, the astronaut. You may remember Jerry Ross was her dad. So she's going to be talking about spacesuits in general, going to other planets and the moon, and also about a project that she's involved with where the Perseverance rover on the way to Mars right now has some target material on its platform which are of some prospective spacesuit materials or future spacesuits. So they're going to be able to measure how these, with the instruments, they're going to be able to Sherlock instrument. They're going to be able to measure how these spacesuit materials hold up in the atmosphere, sun, and essentially the exposure in Mars. So this is a really neat thing they're doing. I mean, why guess about how the material will last on Mars? Just send it to Mars and see how it lasts over the next couple of years. So that's what she's doing. If you'd like to hear about that, I can set you up for a guest, to be a guest on our meeting. So again, if you'd like to listen in on WebEx on Sunday, October the 11th at 4 p.m., just send me an email, space@byrom.net or N5BB@ARRL.net. The National Space Society has various events going on for their members every week, but there's no other local events since we can't physically go somewhere, and we just have our local chapter meetings once a month. So that's everything I have for now, but sometime in the net here I'll have a comment about discovering the first planet in another galaxy. This is N5BB.
Great, thank you very much, Bill. Appreciate it. This is KF5TDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the VARC Skynet. All right, next up is NCS topic of the evening. So tonight's topic, I've chosen NASA's Europa Clipper mission. This information can be found on several different articles on jpl.nasa.gov, .nasa.gov, europa.nasa.gov, some information from Wikipedia. So NASA's Europa Clipper will contain detailed reconnaissance of Jupiter's moon Europa and investigate whether the icy moon could harbor conditions suitable for life. Europa has been identified as one of the locations in the solar system that could possibly harbor microbial extraterrestrial life. The mission's name is a to the lightweight clipper ship of the 19th century that routinely plied trade routes around the world. The moniker was chosen because the spacecraft will sail past Europa. Europa Clipper is still in its planning phase and early development, but the approximate cost estimate rose from $2 billion in 2013 to $4.25 billion in 2020. This mission is a joint project between the Johns Hopkins University's Applied Physics Laboratory, APL, and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL. In 2013, $75 million were authorized to expand on the formulation of mission activities, mature the proposed science goals, and fund preliminary instrument development, as suggested in 2011 by the Planetary Science Decadal Survey. In May 2014, a House bill substantially increased the Europa Clipper, referred to as Europa Multiple Flyby Missions, funding budget for the 2014 fiscal year from $15 million to $100 million to be applied to pre-formulation work. Following the 2014 election cycle, bipartisan support was pledged to continue funding for the Europa Multiple Flyby Mission project. The executive branch has also granted $30 million for preliminary studies. April 2015, NASA chose 9 instruments that would fly on board the orbiter. They will cost about $110 million over the next 3 years. In June 2015, NASA announced its approval of the mission concept, allowing the orbiter to move to its formulation stage, and in January 2016, it approved a lander as well. In May 2016, the Ocean World Exploration was approved, of which the Europa mission is part. In February 2017, the mission moved from Phase A to Phase B, the preliminary design phase. On July 18, 2017, the House Space Subcommittee held hearings on the Europa Clipper as a scheduled large strategic science mission class, and to discuss a possible follow-up mission simply known as the Europa Lander. Phase B continued into 2019. In addition, subsystem vendors were selected, as well as prototype hardware elements for the science instruments. Spacecraft sub-assemblies will be built and tested as well. On August 19, 2019, the Europa Clipper was confirmed to move to Phase C, which is final design and fabrication. Phase B will include assembly, testing, and launch. The goals of Europa Clipper are to explore Europa, investigate its habitability, and aid in the selection of a landing site for the future Europa lander. This exploration focuses on understanding the 3 main requirements for life: liquid water, chemistry, and energy. Specifically, the objectives are to study ice shell and ocean, which is to confirm the existence and characterize the nature of water within or beneath the ice, and processes of surf-ice-ocean exchange. Composition, distribution and chemistry of key compounds and the links to ocean composition, and geology, characteristics and formulation of surface features, including sites of recent or current activity. The spacecraft will be about 20 feet or 6 meters in height, and its solar arrays will stretch 72 feet, 22 meters from tip to tip. At liftoff, it will have a mass of about 13,228 pounds, or 6,000 kilograms, including fuel for the journey. The solar panels will be provided by Airbus Defence and Space, Netherlands. Initial analysis suggests that each panel will have a surface area of 18 square meters and will produce 150 watts continuously when pointed towards the sun while orbiting Jupiter. While in Europa's shadow, batteries will enable the spacecraft to continue gathering data. However, ionizing radiation can damage solar panels. The Europa Clipper will pass through Jupiter's intense magnetosphere, which is expected to gradually degrade the solar panels as the mission progresses. Between each of the flybys, the spacecraft will have 7 to 10 days to transmit data stored during each brief encounter. That will let the spacecraft have up to a year of time to transmit its data, compared to just 30 days for an orbiter. The result will be almost 3 times as much data returned to Earth while reducing exposure to radiation. The Europa Clipper will not orbit Europa, but instead orbiting Jupiter and conduct 44 flybys of Europa at altitudes from 16 miles to 1,678 miles, each during its 3.5-year mission. A key feature of the mission concept is that Clipper would use gravity assist from Europa, Ganymede, and Callisto to change its trajectory, allowing the spacecraft to return a different close approach point with each flight. Each flyby would cover a different sector of Europa in order to achieve a medium-quality global topographic survey, including ice thickness. The Europa Clipper could conceivably fly by at low altitudes through the plumes of water vapor erupting from the moon's ice crust, thus sampling its subsurface ocean without having to land on the surface and drill through the ice. Europa Clipper will inherit tested technology of the Galileo and Juno Jupiter orbiters with regards to radiation protection. Shielding will be provided by 150 kilograms of titanium. To maximize its effectiveness, the electronics will be nested in the core of the spacecraft for additional radiation protection. Europa Clipper is planned to be NASA's Space Launch System Heavy Lift Launch Vehicle on a direct trajectory to Jupiter in less than 3 years. As of September 2020, it should be ready for launch by 2024. Congress has mandated that Europa Clipper be launched on SLS, but NASA has requested that other vehicles be allowed to launch the spacecraft due to a foreseen lack of available SLS vehicles. Since the development and readiness of the SLS may not match the mission's timing, an alternative trajectory profile would use a commercial rocket such as Delta IV Heavy or Falcon Heavy, with a longer 6-year cruise time involving gravity assist maneuvers at Venus, Earth, and Earth again. Another option is to launch on a Falcon Heavy and with a Star 48B solid rocket or a Castor 30B solid rocket as a kick stage. This would require only one gravity assist to Earth and would shorten the cruise phase significantly. The Europa Clipper mission is equipped with a sophisticated suite of 9 instruments to study Europa's interior and ocean, geology, chemistry, and habitability. The electronic components will be protected from the intense radiation by 150 kilogram titanium and aluminum shield. The spacecraft payload and trajectory are subject to change as the mission design matures. The 9 science instruments for the orbiter, which were announced in May 2015, have an estimated total mass of 82 kilograms, or 181 pounds. Here are some details on the instrument package. The Europa Thermal Mission Imaging System, or ETHEMIS, will provide high spatial resolution multispectral imaging of Europa in the mid-infrared and far-infrared bands to help detect active sites such as potential erupting plumes of water into space. This instrument is derived from the Thermal Emission Imaging System on the 2001 Mars Odyssey orbiter, which was also developed by Philip Christensen. Philip Christensen, principal investigator for the Europa Thermal Mission Imaging System, and he is from Arizona. universities. The Mapping Imaging Spectrometer for Europa, or MISE, is an imaging near-infrared spectrometer to probe the surface composition of Europa, identifying and mapping the distribution of including amino acids and tholins, salts and acid hydrates, water ice phases, and other materials. From these measurements, scientists expect to be able to relate the moon's surface composition to the habitability of its oceans. MISE is built in collaboration with the Johns Hopkins University Applied Physics Laboratory. Principal investigator is Diane Blaney at Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Europa Imaging System is a visible spectrum, wide and narrow angle camera instrument that will map most of Europa at 50 meters resolution and will provide images of selected surface areas at up to 0.5 meter resolution. Principal investigator is Elizabeth Turtle at the Applied Physics Laboratory. The Europa Ultraviolet Spectrograph, or Europa UVS, instrument will be able to detect small plumes and will provide valuable data about the composition and dynamics of the moon's exosphere. Principal investigator Kurt Rutherford of the Southwest Research Institute was part of a group that discovered plumes erupting from Europa while using the Hubble Space Telescope in the UV spectrum. Europa Assessment and Sounding Ocean to Near Surface, or REASON, is a dual-frequency ice-penetrating radar instrument that is designed to characterize and sound Europa's ice crust from the near surface to the ocean, revealing the hidden structure of Europa's ice shell and potential water pockets within. This instrument will be built by Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Principal investigator is Donald Blankenship at the University of Texas at Austin. The interior characterization of Europe using magnetometry, or IceMag, was canceled due to cost overruns, but this will be replaced by a simpler magnetometer. The Plasma Instrument for Magnetic Sounding, or PIMS, measures the plasma sounding Europa to characterize the magnetic fields generated by plasma currents. These plasma currents mask the magnetic induction response of Europa's subsurface ocean. In conjunction with a magnetometer, it is key to determining Europa's ice shell thickness, ocean depth, and salinity. PIMS will also probe the mechanisms responsible for weathering and releasing material from Europa's surface into the atmosphere and ionosphere, and understanding how Europa influences its local space environment and Jupiter's magnetosphere. The principal investigator is Joseph Westlake at the Applied Physics Laboratory. Mass spectrometer for planetary exploration, or MASSPEC, will determine the composition of the subsurface ocean by measuring Europa's extremely tenuous atmosphere and any surface materials ejected into space. Jack Waite of the Southwest Research Institute, who is principal investigator, who led the development of MASSPEC, was also science team lead of the Ion and Neutral Mass Spectrometer, or INMS, on the Cassini spacecraft. The Surface Dust Analyzer, or SUDA, is a mass spectrometer that will measure the composition of small solid particles ejected from Europa, providing the opportunity to directly sample the surface and potential plumes on low-altitude flybys. The instrument is capable of identifying traces of organic and inorganic compounds in the ice of ejecta. The principal investigator for this instrument is Sasha Kemp at the University of Colorado, Boulder. So there you have it, some information about the Europa's Clipper mission. This is KF5PDS, your net control for this DARC Skynet. At this time, we'll go ahead and take additional check-ins, so we'll turn the net over to my alternate net control, KE5ICX, and you'll see if we have any additional check-ins. And then you have permission to directly turn the net over to Chaz for his segment after the check-in round. So this is KF5PDS to KE5ICX.
right, Miss Billy, I do exactly that. This is KE5ICX. I'm going to go ahead and acknowledge two people that have already checked in. I got KG5IWK, that is Billy, he's over on Facebook, and then I have a non-ham, Kia, KIYA, who is also checked in, or is now checked in. I'll take additional folks who would like to join the net this evening. Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from.
This is Whiskey Bravo number 4, Mike Foxtrot, India, WB4, MFI, Ted, Dallas, low power. Kilo Foxtrot 5, India Victor Juliet, mobile, Justin, Wilmer.
Okay, I picked up two more. I got WB4MFI, that's Ted, low power in Dallas, one of our usual suspects. I've got you. K5IVJ, that's Justin, over, he's mobile, over in Wilmer somewhere. He may be out of Wilmer now. I don't think it's very big. Any additional check-ins, please come now.
Kilo Fox 5, Tango Hotel Bravo, Brent and Henrietta via Echolink, KF5THB, back to net.
Okay, we picked up one more, this time on Echolink, K5THB, that's Brent over in Henrietta, another one of our regulars. All right, KF5JHA, Chaz, you have been summoned for What's Up from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you very much. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. My degree is in astrophysics, and I am the astrophysics lab manager at Dallas College on the Brookhaven campus. We call this segment of Skynet, What's Up? Slide number 2, the moon was at its first quarter on September 23rd. And so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. The moon will be full on October the 1st. The moon will be at its third quarter on October the 9th, and the moon will be new on October the 16th. Slide number 3. Last night on September 25th at 11:30 p.m., if you looked in the southwestern sky, you could have seen the moon just to the left of the planet Saturn. The much brighter Jupiter was just to the right of them. Saturn and Jupiter are getting closer and closer together and will be in conjunction on December the 20th and 21st. The last great conjunction of Jupiter and Saturn was on May 31st in the year 2000. But this year, on December 20th and 21st, the two planets will be so close together, they will look like one object. And in telescopes, we'll be able to see both planets in the same field of view at the same time. Slide number 4. Early in the morning of October the 2nd, looking east, you can find Venus and Regulus. Regulus is the brightest star in Leo, in conjunction with each other. By the way, conjunction means they're close together. Slide number 5, also on October the 2nd, if you look in the evening sky, you can find the moon and Mars in conjunction in the eastern sky around 11:30 p.m. Slide number 6, at the end of summer of 2003, I talked about this last week, but I think it's so important I wanted to do it again. So in the end of the summer of 2003, well, maybe it wasn't the end, but it was around the end of August. I don't remember the exact date. But the group of over 30 task members had gathered on the Richland College campus with telescopes to have a public observing session to look at Mars. Mars was at its closest it had been since September the 24th in the year 57,617 BC. The sky was clear, and the news media must have done a really good job of getting the word out, because there were cars backed up on the road. There were no less than 25 people in line at each telescope for most of the few hours of the event. I wasn't in Dallas for the Halley's Comet craze, but this event back in 2003 must have been at least equal to the 1986 Halley's Comet event. Slide number 7. About every 26 months, both Mars and Earth are on the same side of the solar system. That means they are close to each other every 26 months. NASA uses this to their advantage by often sending spacecraft to Mars about every 26 months when the two planets are close together. Slide number 8. Opposition is when the object is opposite the sun and the sky, about 180 degrees apart in right ascension from the sun, as viewed from the Earth. If all the planets' orbits were circular and they were all exactly the same plane as the Earth's orbital plane, then the moment of a planet's opposition opposite the sun and the sky would be the same as the closest approach. But since this is not the case, opposition and closest approach are usually a few days apart. October 13th is the opposition of Mars, while October the 6th is the closest approach. Slide number 9. All of the planets, including Mars and the Earth, orbit the sun in elliptical orbits and are not precisely in the same orbital plane. Mars is closer to the sun during its perihelion and further away from the sun in its aphelion. The same is true for the Earth. Now, if Mars is near its perihelion and Earth is close to its aphelion, when they are on the same side of the solar system, then the planets can be really close. This happens about every 15 to 17 years. The very closest the planet Mars and the Earth can come is around 33.9 million miles, but that's just an ideal circumstance. Slide number 10. Back in August 28th of 2003, the distance between the Earth and Mars was only 34.65 million miles. On the last close approach, Mars and the Earth, that was on July 31st, 2018, we were separated by only 35.8 million miles. Now, on this close approach, I'm talking about the October 6th coming up, we will be separated by 38.6 million miles. The next really good close approach will be in the year 2035. But there will be, in the year 2287, on August 28th, Mars will be getting closer than it was in 2003. Did you get all those dates? It doesn't look like we can have any public observing stations for this Earth-Mars close approach, so grab your own scope and head outside right now, between now and the middle of October, because Mars and the Earth are pretty close together. And my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 12. Let's talk about the upcoming showers, meteor showers in October. There are 5 meteor showers worth talking about in October. 3 of them are in the first half of the month, and that's what I'll cover now. The Camelot-Hardness meteor shower will peak on the night of October the 4th and 5th. It's about half a dozen meteors per hour. The Draconids meteor shower will peak on the night of October the 7th, 8th, with only about 3, or maybe as many as 1,000 meteors per hour. They can have a storm, but it's not predictable exactly when that can happen. And the Southern Toroids meteor shower will peak on the night of October the 9th and 10th, with about half a dozen meteors per hour. I always suggest camping at a state park, especially Texas state parks, because we have the big system, over 80 parks and wildlife reserves where you can park to watch meteors. For details about meteors and meteor showers, visit the American Meteor Society at amsmeteors.org or the International Meteor Organization, IMO.net. Once again, the Texas Astronomical Society will have their next meeting on October the 23rd with guest speaker David Eicher with Astronomy Magazine. So if you want to get more details about that, go to texasastro.org for details. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any information, or do you have just a general astronomy question? I don't know everything, but I may know the answer to your question. Come now with your call sign if you have a question.
KE5ICX.
KE5ICX. Tom, go ahead.
All right, well, I've got the NASA channel up here on the TV, and they are talking about International Observe the Moon Night. I think it is Astronomy Day. Do you have any info on that as to what that's all about, or was this just picked because it was 1 out of 365 days, or what do you have anything on that from KE5I6?
Oh, I've sort of forgotten about that because we don't do public observing sessions right now. Well, at least over the last 6 months. Tom, why don't you give us some more information about that? What is the date? It's usually around full moon, I believe. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Turn it back on me. Astronomy Day, which is something I think is the first time I've met some of the task people. Let's see. Whoops, it says May 2nd, 2020. But they said something about Astronomy Day, but apparently not. Let's see. Prizes, fall events. So, I don't know. It says Observe the Moon Day. I thought I had seen Astronomy Day. But, oh, here it is. October 5th, I guess, is coming up as one. Everett Public Library somewhere. Well, I don't know. This is very strange because I'm watching on TV. They're showing me one thing, and I got all these other dates that are listed here. So I guess I don't know. That's why I asked you, the professional astronomer. I'm just an amateur at just about everything. So I don't know. But if you want to watch the NASA channel, they're doing Observe the Moon tonight, and they've got cameras all over the world, or all over the United States that they're showing. I'm looking here on the back TV, and they have some pretty close shots. Maybe, I'm not sure where that is. The moon observers would know, but it looks pretty cool. Get me out of this, KE5ICX.
Okay, I will get you out of this. I see some information from Kelly on the Echolink chat that tonight is the International Observe the Moon Night. So take your binoculars or telescope outside tonight and go take a look at it. It's really awesome to see almost any time, but tonight would be a good time to do that. Okay, I want to welcome the students from Brookhaven College that are listening and watching the Skynet tonight. Students, just remember, if you want to get stargazing class credit for this, remember to fill out the form within the next 48 hours. Okay, slide number 15. So as the moon will wane at the beginning of October, so do these words with this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world, and until next week, keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5JHA Chaz. We'll go back to Billy, our net control.
Thank you very much, Chaz. This is KF5 PDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the BARC Skynet. And yes, tonight is International Observe the Moon Night. If you go to moon.nasa.gov, you can tune into NASA's official International Observe the Moon Night live broadcast Started at 5:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, goes till 11:30 p.m. Eastern Time tonight. So it'll be going for another 30 minutes. So if you want to check that out, again, it's moon.nasa.gov, and you can look at the NASA Live official stream on NASA TV. All right, next up is space exploration and space history. So tonight, we'll turn the net over to Kelly, K5KTX, if you will do tonight's report.
Thank you, Billy. This is K5KTX, and I read this article a little bit earlier this week and found it pretty fascinating. So data from NASA instruments aboard the European Space Agency, or ESA, Rosetta mission have helped reveal that Comet 67P Churyumov-Gerasimenko has its own far ultraviolet aurora. It is the first time such electromagnetic emissions in the far ultraviolet have been documented on a celestial object other than a planet or moon. A paper on the findings was released last Monday in the journal Nature Astronomy. On Earth, aurora, also known as the northern or southern lights, are generated when electrically charged particles speeding from the sun hit the upper atmosphere to create colorful shimmers of green, white, and red. Elsewhere in the solar system, Jupiter and some of its moons, as well as Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and even Mars, have all exhibited their own version of northern lights. But the phenomena had yet to be documented in comets. Rosetta is space exploration's most traveled and accomplished comet hunter. Launched in 2004, it orbited Comet 67P from August 2014 until its dramatic end-of-mission comet landing in September of 2016. The data for this most recent study is on what mission scientists initially interpreted as day glow, a process caused by photons of light interacting with the envelope of gas known as the coma that radiates from and surrounds the comet's nucleus. But new analysis of the data paints a very different picture. The data indicates 67P's emissions are actually auroral in nature. Electrons streaming out in the solar wind, the stream of charged particles flowing out from the sun, interact with the gas in the comet's coma, breaking apart water and other molecules. The resulting atoms give off a distinctive far ultraviolet light. Invisible to the naked eye, far ultraviolet has the shortest wavelengths of radiation in the ultraviolet spectrum. Exploring the emission of 67P will enable scientists to learn how the particles in the solar wind change over time, something that is crucial for understanding space weather throughout the solar system. By providing better information on how the sun's radiation affects the space environment they must travel through, such information could ultimately help protect satellites and spacecraft, as well as astronauts traveling to the moon and Mars. So Rosetta is the gift that keeps on giving. NASA-supplied instruments contributed to this investigation. The Ion and Electron Sensor, or IES, instrument detected the amount of and energy of electrons near the spacecraft. The ALICE instrument measured the ultraviolet light emitted by the aurora, and the microwave instrument for the Rosetta Orbiter, or MIRO, measured the amount of water molecules around the comet. Other instruments aboard the spacecraft used in the research were the Italian Space Agency's Visible and Infrared Thermal Imaging Spectrometer, the Langmuir Probe, LAP, provided by Sweden, and the Rosetta Orbiter Spectrometer for Ion and Neutral Analysis, or ROSINA, provided by Switzerland. And in space history this past week, starting with September 23rd, back in 1969, Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins donned sombreros and ponchos in Mexico as they were greeted by a crowd of thousands eager to see and meet the astronauts. Jetting around the world as part of the Giant Step Apollo 11 Presidential Goodwill Tour, the crews made their first stop in Mexico City. Their motorcade will crawl as crowd control struggled to contain the public's overflowing excitement. The global adventure had only just begun. They would soon fly to Buenos Aires, Paris, Tokyo, and more to share their spacefaring exploits and invite people around the world to take part in scientific exploration. At one point, their tour brought them to the doorstep of Pope Paul VI. After 24 countries and 45 days, they finished their circumnavigation with a stay at the White House. On September the 25th, back in 1992, NASA's Mars Observer launched. The Mars Observer was a space probe designed to study the Martian surface, atmosphere, climate, and magnetic field from orbit. Unfortunately, 3 days before it was due to enter Mars's orbit, NASA lost contact with the probe. To this day, it has never been found. And also on September the 25th, back in 2000, researchers released a photo known as the Extreme Deep Field, or XDF. It is a composite of 10 years' worth of observations by NASA's Hubble Space Telescope. This photograph was assembled by stitching together over 2,000 images to reveal the deepest view ever glimpsed of the universe. XDF depicts galaxies numbering in the thousands, some of which date back 13.2 billion years. XDF is both a glimpse into the distant past of the universe and a guide to future of deep space study. The XDF is a fraction of the angular diameter of the full moon. So if you ever need a little perspective on life, go stare at this image and ponder on it while you listen to Carl Sagan read The Pale Blue Dot. And finally, on September the 26th, just 4 years ago, 2016, NASA announced that the planet Mercury, like Earth, is tectonically active. NASA used satellite imaging from the Mercury surface, space environment, geochemistry, and ranging, or MESSENGER spacecraft to observe cliff-like landforms that have formed relatively recently, an indication that Mercury is still contracting. Mercury is the only other planet in our solar system where active tectonic activity has been observed. And that's all I've got tonight. This is K5KTX. Back to you, Billy.
Great. Thank you very much, Kelly. This is KFI-CDS. Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. All right, next up, we're going back to our resident professional astronomer, Chaz, KF5JHA. He'll present Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm watching a hockey game. I don't know why I'm doing that. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent Key Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Since there are about 52 easily visible constellations seen from Texas throughout the year, out of the 88 total constellations, Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky in a year. In her honor, we've continued the tradition of a constellation per week. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is actually two. It's a 2-for-1 sale. Delphinus, the dolphin, and Equuleus, the little horse, or foal. Slide number 17. Equuleus constellation lies in the northern sky. It means a little horse or foal in Latin. Equuleus is the second smallest constellation in the sky. The only one smaller is the Southern Cross. It occupies only 72 square degrees. Equuleus, the little horse or foal, lies between its two big brothers, Pegasus and Delphinus, the dolphin. Most historians agree that Ptolemy wrote about this constellation back in the 2nd century. Slide number 18. Kit Alpha, or Alpha Equuli, is the spectroscopic binary with type G03. It has a visual magnitude of about 4 and is approximately 186 light years in distance. It is the brightest star in Equuleus. It's about 75 times more luminous than the sun and is about 2.72 times the mass of the sun. Slide number 19, Gamma Equuleus, or 5 Equuleus, is also a double star. It belongs to a spectral class A9. It is a visual magnitude of 4.7, is about 118 light years distant. Slide number 20, Epsilon Equuli, is another multiple star in Equuleus and consists of 4 different components. It is a visual magnitude of 5.3 and about 196, we'll call it 200 light years distance from the sun. Slide number 21, Carolyn would have liked this. Our Equuli is a Myra-class variable. It is an M-class red giant. It varies from magnitude 8.7 all the way down to 15th magnitude over a period of 260 days. It is one of the many variables that are monitored by the members of the AAVSO, American Association of Variable Star Observers. Slide number 22, NGC 7015 is a galaxy with visual magnitude of 12.4. That's kind of faint. It's only about 2 minutes by 2 minutes in size and about 212 million light years in distance. NGC 7015 is a face-on spiral galaxy. It shines at, as I said, as a dim 12th magnitude galaxy. And my call sign is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide number 23, Delphinus. We're skipping from the horse down to the dolphin. Delphinus represents the dolphin sent by the sea god Poseidon to find Aphrodite, whom he wanted to marry. Delphinus is the 69th constellation in size, occupying an area of 189 square degrees. The constellation is also sometimes referred to as Job's coffin because it is a long box-like shape. Most of the time the name is restricted to just the 4 stars in the constellation that make up like the body of the dolphin. Alpha, Beta, Gamma, and Delta Delphini. Slide number 24, Alpha Delphini is the brightest star in the constellation. It is a combined apparent magnitude of 3.77. Why did I say combined? Because this is a multiple star consisting of 7 components, A through G. Wow, that's a lot of different stars. You might be able to see a few of them if you have a good enough telescope. Slide number 25, Beta Delphini is discovered to be a binary star in 1873 by American astronomer Burnham. The system is about 1.8 billion years old and consists of a pair of stars belonging to the spectral type F53 and F54. Leave them up to slide number 26. Gamma Delphi is another binary star, which is about 101 light years in distance. The primary component is the yellow-white dwarf and the spectral type F75, and comparison star is an orange subgiant belonging to a spectral type K14. All these spectral types, we've talked about those before. Maybe we'll have to do that some other time soon. Stars have magnitude 5.14 and 4.27 respectively. Now, slide number 27 is Struve 2725. Struve 2725 is another separate double star that is very near Gamma Delphi. Both can be fitted in the same eyepiece field of view since they are only about 14.5 arc minutes apart. What about the width of a first quarter moon? Let's talk about a couple of deep sight objects in Delphinus. NGC, this is slide number 28. NGC 6934 is a relatively large globular cluster near the star Epsilon Delphi. It's approximately 50,000 light years in distance and has a visual magnitude of 8.8. Slide number 29, NGC 7006, is a globular cluster located approximately 137,000 light years away in the outskirts of the Milky Way. Slide number 30, the Blue Flash Nebula, also known as NGC 6905, is a small planetary nebula, bluish in color. Oh, that's why it's called the Blue Flash Nebula. It can be observed in a 6-inch telescope or larger, easily. Slide number 31. This is an interesting object. It's called French 1. It's a toadstool. This asterism is in the Astronomical League Open Cluster Club list. This group of stars was named the Toadstool by Sue French. Oh, that's why it's called French 1. The current writer of Deep Sky Wonders column in the Sky and Telescope magazine. Her mentioning of it in print in the Small Scope Sampler column in October of 2002 issue of Sky and Telescope magazine. This article also included a nice finder chart with close-up views and also mentions that it's in Unimetria 2000 star atlas, which even labels it as French 1. We're up to slide number 32. There are more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Delphinus, but not anymore in Equuleus because it's such a small constellation. I've given you just a sampling of a few of those objects. The Astronomical League has over 60 different observing programs, and it's adding several more to the program list I found out last night. So there could be almost, or maybe equal to 70 different observing programs. Each one of the programs have about 100 objects. If you observe just 10 different objects in an observing program each month, then you can earn an observing certificate and a pin in about a year. Slide number 33, and that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Delphinus the Dolphin, well actually constellations. Delphinus the Dolphin and Equuleus the Little Horse. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for their research and words on the deep sky objects that I've used tonight. And I also used the website constellation-guide.com for additional information. Next week, I'm going to take a look at the constellation Capricornus, the Sea Goat. And this is KF5, JHA, Jazz, back to Billy or Net Control.
Great, thank you very much, Kaz. This is KF5 TDS, Billy, your net control for this session of the DARC Skynet. Next up is space launches for the week. So at this time, I'll turn the net over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll give us some information about some space launches.
Thank you again, Miss Billy. I'll limit just a few interesting ones here, and just remember that thanks to the wonders of the Internet, virtually every one of these launches, in fact, I think all of them are available online live. So just go and look for them on the days that I mentioned here. September 28th, we have a Soyuz Gonet M launch. That's from the Cosmodrome Russia. A Soyuz rocket will launch 3 Gonet M communication satellites and a cluster of international rideshare payloads. The rocket will fly in a Soyuz 21B configuration with a Fregat upper stage. September 29th, 30th, a Falcon 9 GPS launch. When it says 29th, 30th, of course, it's overnight at Launch Complex 40 at Cape Canaveral. The SpaceX Falcon 9 will launch Air Force 4th, third-generation navigation satellite for the GPS system. The satellite was built by Lockheed Martin. Also, September 29th and 30th, Antares NG-14. This will launch from Pad 0A at Wallops Island, Virginia. The rocket will launch the 15th Cygnus cargo freighter on the 14th operational cargo delivery flight to the International Space Station. It's known as NG-14. Will fly the Antares 230 configuration with 2 RD-181 first stage engines and a Castor 30XL second stage. October, there will be a Falcon 9 Starlink 13. This will launch the 14th batch of approximately 60 satellites for SpaceX Starlink broadband network, a mission-designated Starlink 13. I know everybody's feeling the same way, and they're getting that visceral reaction. In October, yet to be determined, there's the STP-27RM launch from Launch Complex 2 at Wallops Island, Virginia. A Rocket Lab Electron rocket will launch on its first mission from a new launch pad at the Mid-Atlantic Regional Spaceport at Wallops Island, Virginia. Launch customers, the U.S. Air Force, and the mission will launch experimental mission of the Space Test program called Monolith with a space weather instrument. The Monolith mission will demonstrate the ability of small satellite to support large aperture payloads. And then I'm going to skip down here. There's others, but they have to be determined. There's the SSLV demonstration launch from Satish Dhawan Space Center in India. India's small satellite launch vehicle, SSLV, will launch its first orbital test flight consisting of 3 solid-fueled stages and a liquid-fueled upper stage. The SSLV is a new launch vehicle from India designed to carry small satellites into low Earth orbit. And at this point, I'll send it back to Net Control. Also, Equuleus from Brookhaven College, or Dallas College, is also listening in. I thought I would mention them as well. Back to Net Control, KE5ICX.
Thanks very much, Tom. All right, at this time, I'll turn that for recent astronomical discoveries. I will turn to Brenda, WB5OZ, if you will give us your report.
Thank you, Billy. This is WB5OZL. And the title of this article is Solving the Strange Storms on Jupiter. At the south pole of Jupiter lurks a striking sight. Even for a gas giant planet covered in colorful bands that sports a red spot larger than the Earth. Down near the south pole of the planet, mostly hidden from the prying eyes of humans, is a collection of swirling storms arranged in an unusually geometric pattern. Since they were first spotted by NASA's Juno space probe in 2019, the storms have presented something of a mystery to scientists. The storms are analogous to hurricanes on Earth. However, on our planet, hurricanes do not gather themselves at the poles and twirl around each other in the shape of a pentagon or hexagon, as do Jupiter's curious storms. Now, a research team working in the lab of Andy Ingersoll, Caltech professor of planetary science, has discovered why Jupiter storms behave so strangely. They did so using math derived from a proof written by Lord Kelvin, a British mathematical physicist and engineer nearly 150 years ago. Ingersoll, who was a member of the Juno team, says Jupiter storms are remarkably similar to the ones that lash the east coast of the United States every summer and fall, just on a much larger scale. If you went below the cloud tops, you would probably find liquid water, raindrops, hail, and snow. He says, the winds would be hurricane-force winds. Hurricanes on Earth are a good analog of the individual vortices within these arrangements we see on Jupiter, but there is nothing so stunningly beautiful here. As on Earth, Jupiter storms tend to form closer to the equator and then drift toward the poles. However, Earth's hurricanes and typhoons dissipate before they venture too far from the equator. Jupiter's just keep going until they reach the poles. The difference is that on the Earth, hurricanes run out of warm water and they run into continents, said Ingersoll. Jupiter has no land, so there's much less friction because there's nothing to rub against. There's just more gas under the clouds. Jupiter also has heat left over from its formation, and that is comparable to the heat it gets from the sun. so the temperature difference between its equator and its poles is not as great as it is on Earth. However, Ingersoll says this explanation still does not account for the behavior of the storms once they reach Jupiter's south pole, which is unusual even compared to other gas giants. Saturn, which is also a gas giant, has one enormous storm at each of its poles rather than a geometrically arranged collection of storms. The answer is to the mystery of why Jupiter has these geometric formations and other planets do not, Ingersoll and his colleagues discovered could be found in the past, specifically in work conducted in 1878 by Alfred Mayer, an American physicist, and Lord Kelvin. Mayer had placed floating circular magnets in a pool of water and observed that they would spontaneously arrange themselves into geometric configurations similar to those seen on Jupiter, with shapes that depended on the number of magnets. Kelvin used Mayer's observations to develop a mathematical model to explain the magnet's behavior. Back in the 19th century, people were thinking about how spinning pieces of fluid would arrange themselves into polygons, Ingersoll says. Although there were lots of laboratory studies of these fluid polygons, no one had thought of applying that to a planetary surface. To do so, the research team used a set of equations known as the shallow water equations to build a computer model of what might be happening on Jupiter and began to run simulations. We wanted to explore the combination of parameters that makes these cyclones stable, says Ching Li, lead author in 51 Pegasi B words and words names. There are established theories that predict that cyclones tend to merge at the pole due to the rotation of the planet, and so we found in the initial trial runs. Eventually, however, the team found that a Jupiter-like stable geometric arrangement of storms would form if the storms were each surrounded by a ring of winds that turned in the opposite direction from the spinning storms, or a so-called anticyclonic ring. The presence of anticyclonic rings causes the storms to repel each other rather than merge. Ingersoll says the research could help scientists better understand how weather on Earth behaves. Other planets provide a much wider range of behaviors than what you see on Earth, he says, so you study the weather on other planets in order to stress test your theories. That's it. Back to Nat. This is WB50ZL.
Thank you very much, Brenda. This is KFI TDS. Billy, your net control for this section of the DARC Skynet. All right, at this time, I'll turn it over to Tom, KE5ICX, if you'll do a final check-in round and get us a final count for this evening's net. This is KFI TDS to KE5ICX.
This is KE5ICX. I'll go ahead and take final check-ins. Please come now with your call sign phonetically, your name, and where you're transmitting from.
Inside BB, still got one recheck. Still got one hot news item, Tom, and I'll be out of town next week. Inside BB.
Okay, Bill, go ahead. Make it quick. We're about 3 minutes before 10:30, so go ahead.
I know I've been sending you messages for a long time on the text, Echolink text. The big news is that there's a probable or possible discovery of the first exoplanet outside the Milky Way galaxy. So, this is in the M51 Whirlpool galaxy, a very famous, very pretty galaxy which has a adjacent smaller galaxy that's interacting with it. And this is a X-ray binary source. It's a neutron or neutron star or black hole with a blue giant close to it, very high mass. The small neutron star or black hole is sucking material off of the blue giant leading to an extremely large amount of X-rays, soft X-rays, thermal X-rays.
I'm completely operational and all my
amount
circuits are functioning perfectly.
Energy coming in X-rays is about 1 million times brighter than all of the energy at all wavelengths coming from our sun. So it's incredibly bright in X-rays. And they discovered a transiting planet. This planet is around a little smaller than Saturn, and it's located roughly at the same distance from the binary. And because of the geometry and the size of the neutron star black hole being pretty small, the X-ray source is completely eclipsed for 20 to 30 minutes. So you can imagine this planet going around completely eclipsing the complete X-ray source for 20 or 30 minutes, and then it starts coming back again. This is totally different than other planets that are transiting regular stars, where we see a little tiny amount of the light going down. Here, it just turns off the X-rays. So they've discovered one so far, and it's at M51, about 23 light years away in 5BB. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Bill. Thanks for that story. That is pretty exciting. This is KE5ICX. I'll take any final check-ins. Please come now with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from. All right, here you go. I have 29 check-ins from all sources. Back to net control. KE5ICX.
Copy that. Tonight we had 29 hams participating on the air, so thank you to all who checked in this evening. We hope you'll join us here next week and Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5fc.org. You can follow topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and Twitter, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful internet resources by going to w5fc.org at the conclusion of this net. So until next Saturday night, this is KF5 TDS, Billy, and I'll be closing the net at 22:32 local time and returning the repeater to normal amateur use. So 7-3, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. And remember, following this net is the Afterglow movie net, which will be discussing 2012's Iron Sky. 7-3, everybody.
And this is KE5ICX. We'll be starting the Afterglow movie net in about 5 minutes. Go powder your noses. KE5ICX. minutes. In the immortal words of Khan Noonien Singh, time's up, Captain. So, let's see. What this is, Theatrical Movie Net. I'm going to be the net control tonight. Today's movie, selected at random from a series of fine films available all over the internet. Tonight's film is Iron Skies from 2012, a Finnish, German-Australian comic science fiction action film directed by somebody whose name I cannot pronounce, and written by two other people whose names I cannot pronounce, but they got lots of O's and A's in them. Tells the story of a group of Nazi Germans who have been defeated in 1945 and fled to the moon, where they build a space fleet to return in 2018, the future, and conquer Earth. Iron Sky is one of the most expensive Finnish films ever made. Iron Sky comes from the creators of Star Wreck in the Pickering and was produced by Tiro Kakoma at Blind Spot Pictures and Energia Productions, co-produced by New Holland Pictures and 27 Films, and co-financed by numerous individual supporters like you. It was theatrically released throughout Europe in April of 12. The director's cut of the film with 20 additional minutes was released on DVD and Blu-ray on March 11, 2014. There's also a video game adaptation called Iron Sky Invasion, which was released in October of 2012. A sequel, Iron Sky, The Coming Race, was crowdfunded through Indiegogo and was released in January of 2019. Yeah, it had a sequel. All right, let me read a little bit of the plot. Now, what's going to happen is we're going to ask you at some point about what you thought of the plot, the acting, and then finally we'll have time probably for special effects. So it's going to be a bumpy night. Here is the plot. In 2018, an American manned mission lands on Mars. The lander carries two astronauts. One of them is an African-American male model, James Washington, specifically chosen to aid the U.S. president in her re-election. Various Black to the Moon wordplay posters are seen in the film extolling the new landing. Upon landing on the far side of the moon, they encounter the descendants of Nazis who escaped from the moon in 1945. Self-styled the Fourth Reich in dialogue. Washington is taken captive after the other astronaut is killed. Nazi science Dr. Richter examines Washington and obtains his smartphone, which he later recognizes as having more computing power than 1940s-style computers of the Fourth Reich, enabling its use as a control unit to complete their giant battleship Gotterdammerung. When Richter strives to demonstrate his Wunderwaffe to the current Führer, Wolfgang Korsesit, the phone's battery is quickly exhausted. Nazi commander Klaus Adler, chosen for genetic reasons to mate with the Earth specialist Renate Richter, Dr. Richter's daughter, embarks in a flying saucer to collect more such computers on Earth. He takes with him Washington, who has been Aryanized. Dr. Richter using an albinizing drug. I told you this was a weird movie. Upon landing in New York City, they discover that Renate has stowed away with them. They abandon Washington after he connects with them with the president's campaign advisor, Vivian Wagner. Adler and Renate energize the president's re-election campaign using Nazi-style rhetoric. Renate is unaware of Adler's ambition to replace Kortzfleisch and rule the world. After 3 months, Kortzfleisch lands on Earth and confronts Adler, but is killed by Adler and Vivian. Adler declares himself the new Führer before returning to orbit in Kortzfleisch flying saucer. You try and say his name. Deserting Vivian, but taking her tablet computer. Concurrently, Renat is persuaded by the homeless Washington that Adler intends to global genocide. Shortly afterwards, the Moon Nazis launch a mass attack on Earth that's led by a Zeppelin-like spacecraft called Siegfrieds, which tow asteroids as missiles and launch countless flying saucers at New York City, where they destroy the Statue of Liberty and blitz the city. The U.S. Air Force engaged the flying saucers with some success. The United Nations assembles to discuss the Moon Nazi threat. The President appoints Vivian as commander of the security militarized spacecraft USS George W. Bush, which carries nuclear and directed energy weapons, only to discover that most of the other nations, except Finland, of course, have also secretly armed their spacecraft. They dispatch them against the Nazi fleet and wipe out the Siegfrieds. Adler arrives with Cornflesh's flying saucer with a tablet computer to activate the Goddard-Damarang. Renat and Washington travel in Adler's flying saucer to the Goddard-Damarang, where Washington goes to disable the engines while Renat seeks out Adler. Meanwhile, the International Space Fleet damaged Nazi's moon base and approached the Goddard-Damarang with which dwarfs them all. Commanding the ship, Adler destroys parts of the moon to expose Earth to his line of fire. During the battle, Washington disconnects Vivian's tablet from the control panel of the Goddard-Damarang, while Renat kills Adler before he can fire at Earth. Renat and Washington separately escape as the Goddard-Damarang crashes into the moon. The U.S. President congratulates Vivian from the UN session, whereupon Vivian discloses the presence of large tanks of helium-3 on the moon, of which the President immediately assumes sole claim on grounds that his possession ensures the millennium-long supply of energy. This enrages the other UN members, who engage in a brawl while the international fleet turn on each other. At the damaged moon base, Renat reunites with Washington, who has reverted to his pigmentation back to normal. They kiss before a confused group of Nazi survivors, whom Renat assures they have a lot of work cut out for them. The final moments of the film show the Earth apparently during an international nuclear war. At the very end of the credits, the planet Mars is revealed with an artificial satellite in orbit. So, this movie came up on the radar because it was available free on Tubi or something. I don't know what it was. It had ads in it. So that's why it was pulled this month, because it was available that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take check-ins now. So you don't have to necessarily have seen the movie, but I will ask if you have or not. We may ask your questions about space Nazis. This is not the first movie with space Nazis. They've been around for a long time. So let's go ahead and get started. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and give me your location. Let me know if you saw the movie or not. So please come with your call sign phonetically and that information.
November 5, Bravo, Bravo. Bill and Irving. I did not see the movie, but I'm just starting to watch it now. So I will just be listening for a while because I'll be watching the movie. In 5dB.
November, Tango 5, Tango Mike, Otto von Schnitzerputz Krankengescheitmeier, in Dallas. Oh, I did see the movie.
Kilo, Foxtrot 5, Tango, Sierra Kilo, Berlin, Dallas. I did see the movie.
November Golf 5 Yankee, Allen in North Garland, and I did see the movie.
Whiskey Bravo 5, Oscar Zulu Lima, Brenda in DeSoto, and I did see the movie.
All right, let me go ahead and get those check-ins. I've got N5VV, Bill, and Irving. He didn't see it. He's in the process of watching it now. You're going to have to push your mouth back shut again because of the gasp that I'm sure you're watching. NT5TM, Tony in Dallas, yep, he saw it. KF5TSK, Burl in Dallas, yep, he saw it. NG5Y, Alan in North Garland, yep, he saw it. And WB5OZT, WB5OZL, I put T down there. Brenda in DeSoto, yep, she saw the movie. Anyone else? I'll move to Echolink here in just a minute. Anyone else over here would like to check in for Iron Sky this evening? Please come out. All right, I hear none. I'm going to go to Echolink. Echolink, if you'd like to check in, please come now with your call sign name, where you're transmitting from. Did you see Iron Sky from 2012? Echolink only. Okay, nobody. This is bad. Well, maybe not bad. We'll see. Maybe others will check in. Anyone over any mode would like to check in, please come now. All right, let's see what our panel of experts thinks about the movie. Let's start at the top. It's going to be Tony at this point. Bill, I'm sure you'll chime in. I'll give you a chance at the end of each rotation here for folks to check in and make comments. So let's start with Tony, NT5TM in Dallas. You saw the movie. What did you think about the plot from KE5ICX?
Well, just as Mark Twain said about Wagner, who heavily influenced the plot of this movie, great moments, awful quarter hours. This was a satire, and it definitely understood that it was a satire. The plot kept moving quickly. Why are the space Nazis using space zeppelins? I don't know, because it looked cool. Some of the bad movies we've seen would have spent a lot of time trying to explain this nonsense. This one didn't. That's to its credit, because really the plot is kind of inexplicable. If the space Nazis had space radios, which they clearly do, they would have known that, well, they lost the war and they have a pretty good understanding of the situation on Earth. But hey, that's not important right now. There were a lot of great little gags. They were almost airplane-esque. The desperation of the, political campaign consultants to always have the perfect wardrobe and to keep her influence with the president's obsession with winning re-election. The beautiful little map with Z's in here, you are here, that the protagonists see when they land on the giant space battleship. I actually took a screenshot of that, Aaron, and I've been practicing translating all the words like Beer Hall 2 and Valkyrie hangars and Atomic Explosion Chamber 1. All these little gags, nevertheless, it's kind of clunky and slow, and it could have been vastly funnier. But hey, we've seen worse, and it did have some fun moments where I giggled. So the plot, although the quarter hours were bad, did have good moments. November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
All right, thank you, Tony. And yes, good, short, succinct comments on that. As net control, I can wait to the end and then glob onto great ideas or shake my fist and say, what did I see? Next up, KF5TSK, Burl in Dallas. Burl, what did you think about the plot?
This is KF5TSK. Well, it depends on which plot you were looking for. You know, this was this movie had romance, comedy, overthrow of the Nazi government, invasion of Earth. You know, what did the Nazis want when they got to Earth? It was just so many things, and it was almost like supposedly the first trip to Earth was to they wanted to get cell phones and computers, and they came to Earth and never looked for one. So many things. It was almost like they had three different writers. They put it together and says, how do we kill an hour and 30 minutes? K5TSK back to net.
All right, Burl, thank you. How do you kill an hour and 30 minutes? With an invasion of Earth from moon Nazis. Whatever that means in the scheme of things. Okay, next up is Alan, NG5Y. And you're asking why, I know. Yes, he saw the film. What did you think about the plot, Alan, from KE5ICX?
Well, it reminded me of the TV series Hogan's Heroes, with the plot moved from the prison camp to outer space, and of course a much larger budget. It did have continuity errors, like you mentioned, that they came to Earth to get smartphones and then never bothered looking for them. But it had the funny parts where they had this stereotypical president and the mad scientist, Nazi doctor who apparently could build all this stuff but needed a more capable computer to get his spacecraft to fly. NG5Y back to net.
All right, thank you, Alan. Oh my, this is going way too fast. We may be out of here in a half an hour, but let's see what happens. Maybe somebody will hit upon something that is fantastic. Next up, WB5OZ, Brenda in DeSoto. Your thoughts on the plot for Iron Sky from 2012. Please go ahead from KE5ICX.
This is WB5OZL. Well, I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I wouldn't say so much about the plot. I almost felt like maybe the plot wasn't the main point. Had to get all this other stuff in. Honestly, it kind of reminded me of Dr. Strangelove, this devotion to war and all the craziness that goes with it. There were a bunch of things that I just didn't quite understand. Why did the Nazis leave Earth after they, in World War II and go to the moon? What was the objective? And then 60, 70 years later, they're still there. And I'm not sure when this movie was made, but anyway, many decades later, they're still there. Did they have a plan? Were they coming back to Earth? Did they wonder maybe what had happened on Earth, and were they going to revitalize the Nazi Party? Did they know it had died out? I don't know. So that was a little confusing to me. But on the whole, the plot wasn't too bad. It had some funny parts. A lot of satire with, like, the president and the dead animals around the president's office and so on. I love the Volkswagen on the moon. That was a nice touch. This was a combination of Finnish, German-Australian movie. I don't think we've ever seen anything like that before. And they call it a comic science fiction action film. So I think they put a lot of money into this because of the special effects. Of course, I don't know who the actors were, but there was just obviously a lot went into this. Music was wonderful. The story, despite not making a lot of sense sometimes, still was entertaining. And the people were attractive, and we didn't have a lot of really boring people, unlike a lot of these movies. All right, that's all I'm going to say for now. Back to net, WB5OZL.
Okie dokie, thank you, Miss Brenda. I'll go ahead and open it up to anybody who'd like to join us this evening. We are talking about the movie Iron Sky from 2012. It has space Nazis in it. So, if you've seen the film, you know that. But if you would like to check in, please come now with your call sign name, your location if you'd like, and did you see Iron Sky? Please come now. Oh my, this is going to be a quiet one this evening. Well, it is kind of a controversial film. Let me put this thing into perspective a little bit. I am not without having seen this movie before. I have also seen previous productions this company has done, the Energia folks. Star Wreck in the Pickering, or Perkening, whatever. I think I call it Pickering. I think it's pronounced differently. I saw that film when it came out back in, I think, 2000 something, and it was a kind of a fanboy production, and it had involved Star Trek, hence the name Star Wreck. It was actually a parody of Star Trek and of Babylon 5 and the constant fighting that was going on there. So putting it in that context and realizing that it's kind of a fan film with lots of money that was actually crowdfunded in a way where they could do it, I knew where these people were coming from and where they were going. It has that Hogan's Heroes feel to it, of course it does. It also has, don't forget, Mel Brooks has done and brought this kind of disturbing visualization with the producers back in 1967. But you can kind of get away with it if you do it in a comical way, which is crazy. Well, MASH did it as well. Let me reset. So how does the movie stand? Well, the movie stands, and with the plot, you can understand. Now, you made several comments. Don't forget that indeed the colony or the spaceships left because they were losing in World War II in 1945. So what was happening with Germans leaving and going to Brazil and other countries outside of Europe, that was the exodus. So some of them took that popular flying saucer that we've seen a million times in I Want to Believe, propaganda about potential Luftwaffe of flying saucers. That's where that came from. Second of all, they were on the far side of the moon, so I don't know how well signals propagate on the far side of the moon, but my thought is that radio signals don't propagate at all, which is why it makes a perfect place to hide your own communications. It prevents you from being seen from Earth through even the best of telescopes, and you can talk to one another without that signal being intercepted. That's why I think they went to the far side of the moon. Next up, why did they want to invade Earth? Whether they wanted to come back and take Earth back because that was world domination, was what they were hell-bent on, and when things went south, they went to the moon. But for whatever reason, they couldn't get their spacecraft. What was it? The oversized blimp things. I forgot what I called them now, but they're in there. What do? Well, you need something that would actually work. The Siegfrieds, and that could be named after Siegfried from, I don't know, Get Smart. What do you think? I think it was. So they needed to be able to do the navigation or whatever to get back to Earth with massive spacecraft. And as we all know, when you have World War II style stuff, you need a lead space or aircraft to be able to zero in, and then everybody else follows. Well, with the brand new smartphone, you could do that. And that's what they needed. Now, how the heck they figured out the USB to be able to plug into that and then not figure out that recharges the battery as well, I don't know. But the Einstein character didn't take that into consideration. Now, another thing I got to ask, though, is, well, maybe this is under the technical part, but if you're going to go and you're going to go to the moon, we've already realized that astronauts always come with a weapon. They always have some sort of handgun that they carry with them because you never know what's going to happen on the moon. In this case, there was no handgun, and the guy and Washington ended up in trouble, and his poor compatriot astronaut got wiped out as well. So that's bad news. But why are you taking a cell phone to the moon with you? Why what kind of coverage do you get with that? I don't know. But they had to have a reason for the technology, although they blew up the lunar lander, which probably had really good technology they could have used better than what was in the phone. Again, this is a set. It is parody. It is a comedy. And as such, I thought it was quite interesting. But all good comedy has a tendency to hit a darker side. In this case, on the far side of the moon. And Nazis are to be trifled with, nor are they to be appreciated or supported, which was mentioned with pretty much reckless abandon throughout the film. And I was okay with it. I didn't mind that at all. As anybody knows, I sing Springtime for Hitler, and much to the aghast of other people. But that's okay. That's the idea, is that such an idea is both absurd and very frightening at the same time. So you don't, and I think the film communicates that. Unfortunately, at the end, we end up with the bad news, and that is that the people of Earth decide to go to war against each other because they didn't trust and thought that there was a resource available to them elsewhere. A bit of a weird thing, but helium-3, I guess, is a big thing. Why not? It's one better than helium-2. At any rate, again, I thought that the plot was quite entertaining. I thought the characterizations, again, parody of the president and what that all meant was nuts, but I enjoyed it. The uncomfortable comedy that goes along with it actually, I think, does play fairly well when it's all said and done, and I thought the film was quite entertaining, and this is only the second time maybe the third time I've seen it in as many years as it's been available, but I heard that the sequel was not well received, and I can see why, because I think they got all their gags and jokes in the first one. All right, this is KE5ICX. We're at the bottom of the list. Anybody else want to join us this evening? Please come now with your call sign, your name, where you're transmitting from, and did you see Iron Sky from 2012?
This is K5ANE in Richardson, and yes, I saw the movie.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey. However, I saw the film.
Very good. I picked up two more, two of our regulars. I got K5A&E, Kane and Richardson. Yep, you saw the movie. And I got KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. Yep, you saw the movie. So we're in the first round, gentlemen. If you would like to give your comments about what you thought about the plot. K5A&E, Kane, you're first. Please go ahead.
So originally when I found this movie, it was completely randomly stumbling on it on Netflix, and I had no idea what was going on. It was a friend of mine had already queued it up and was just like, this is going to be great, trust me. And it was. I thought it was an incredibly original plot. I don't know of too many other movies that are quite to this level of, you know, just kind of basic absurdity of it, and yet it all still makes so much sense. So obviously where all the Nazis would go, if they were still around, would be the dark side of the moon. I thought it was strange, though. I get the joke, but it's interesting that, you know, all of their technology was, like, pretty much stopped, other than, you know, the obvious. They managed to make UFOs to get to the moon, but, you know, all of their engineering, all of their technical progress is just completely halted entirely. It's just, I don't know, that seems a little bit far-fetched, which, of course, we're talking about Nazis on the moon here, and yet that's what I find far-fetched. At times, it almost felt like maybe the plot was going a little slow, but I don't really know how they could have sped up some of those things. I don't think there were too many scenes that they could have really removed or just, you know, entirely unnecessary. But, I don't know, maybe, you know, some of those political jokes and whatnot, you know, maybe just not necessary. Not that I found them unfunny or anything like that, which, I mean, it's a comedy movie, so that's kind of the whole point. But as far as trying to get this, you know, continuing the plot forward and moving the plot forward, they probably could have done a little bit more to speed it up. I do find it really interesting, the whole aspect of, you know, the person that's really drunk the Kool-Aid and believes you know, that the Nazis are the good guys and they're coming to, you know, cleanse the earth, you know, and thinking that that's a good idea, you know, and then she realizes, like, oh, wait, Charlie Chaplin is not pro-Hitler? In the end, though, I do really like this movie. It's up there on my list of favorite comedy movies, just largely because it's just so original and outlandish. And, yeah, that's what I think of the plot. This is K5A&E, back to Net Control.
All right, very good. Thank you, Kane. And next up is Jay, KG5BZW near Weatherford. Jay, you saw the movie. What did you think about the plot from KE5A6?
Okay, this is KU5BZW. I'm getting my audio through Equuleus, so it seems to be okay. I'll go ahead and say my thing. Kind of hate I accidentally took about maybe 20-minute nap. I wanted to hear other people's thoughts on this and didn't. All of a sudden it's 11 p.m. So anyway, yeah, you gotta take it for what it is. It's a parody of, well, not parody, just it is parody, but well, I mean, there's so much going on here. From downfall parody to what was another thing? It's just a lot of little stuff here. I wouldn't really have. I mean, the whole thing is obviously it's just a certain kind of convoluted. I mean, not really convoluted. Absurd. obviously they do a lot of stuff, and I say there's actually a lot of plot holes that they covered up through, you know. It's another one of those things where if you have, there's a TVstroke.com talks about, it wasn't TVstroke. I don't know. Actually, I think, I don't know who first came up with this. The rule of awesome, basically what I'm trying to say here. And it's not so much awesome, but, you know, the rule of, I mean, the comedy that's, you know, happens all around. It kind of distracts you from, you know, the fact that all the some lack of foundation. Let me reset. Okay, so it's kind of, well, it doesn't seem really that complex to me. It just seems, I don't know, it's not complex, but yeah, it is. I don't know. This is the post-snap brain trying to function here. Clearly having a little bit of trouble. It's interesting. There's nothing. That's just like I was always trying to figure out what's going to happen next. That's what's kind of fun in a movie. So I think they did well on that. Even though, I mean, like, Kane said was talking about how technology did in the past. This is a small population. How are they? And somehow they got, you know, this. Oh, well, them and everybody else on the planet Earth seems to have their own space system that's hidden away from everybody else, which is kind of as surprised as the silliest thing. Well, I don't know. I hate to rank silly things in the law, so I think I feel like I'm really rambling on, and I'm not sure that I'm contributing much, so I'm going to have to give up for now. Interesting film. Definitely watch again. Where does that was seen? I don't know. It's that word, but it is weird. KG5BW, back to that.
All right, thank you, Jay. I think I got most of that. There was comment earlier, Kane mentioned it, about the technology had just stopped. Now, I'm a guy from Michigan, and in my previous life, I spent a lot of time going to different businesses, including the assembly plants in Detroit. I'd been to Dodge, Maine. I had been to the Chrysler plant over on Jefferson Avenue. When you walked into these places, they were 40 years old at the time, some of them close to 50, and they had not changed all that much. You'd walk in and it was dirty environment. Zug Island, another one. These are places that were modern in the sense that they were contemporary at the time that I walked in, but they were very old. They were from the 1930s. Technology hadn't, in the 1940s, and the technology hadn't changed all that much. Where you saw the major changes was where other countries like Germany brought in their Volkswagen plant, and it was modern, and it had people in bunny suits and very clean. The bunny suits were in the paint, spray paint area. So if you're not, you don't have any competition, you're not building anything new, and if the stuff works, you're not going to make much in the way of changes. And many dystopian societies are like that. I think Brazil was an example of that, which is another film we should explore sometime. very telling about dystopian society and fascist-like centralized societies. All right, I'm going to go ahead and go to the top of the list, unless there's additional check-ins, which you can do during this time. But I'm going to, you know what? Let me do this. Let me go to Bill, N5BB. Bill, have you gotten through enough of the movie to go ahead and talk about characterization? Otherwise, I'll leave you to the grand finale or the third round, which usually is the grand finale. N5BB from KE5I6. All right, I'm going to put an asterisk by his name. I have a feeling he is actually watching the movie, probably fast-forwarding through it, if you can do that on digital. NT5TM, Tony, your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX.
Well, thank you, Tom, and I'd like to thank everyone else who's commented. People have pointed out some good things I forgot to mention. I really did appreciate their reference to Modern Times, not Modern Times, The Great Dictator, how that Chaplin movie went from a 10-minute short to a feature-length satire, and she wasn't so happy about that. I really did appreciate the Dr. Strangelove references, especially they had a fight in the war room at the end, which Strangelove had to cut. So thank you for pointing those out to, I know Brenda got the Strangelove stuff, but I forget who mentioned Modern Times. I apologize. You know, I keep saying that, The Great Dictator. I guess that just got Chaplin on the brain. I really did also appreciate, as Brenda mentioned, that unlike some of our recent bad movies, like Titanic 2, which I couldn't stand, the people who made this movie got that some of the characters should be good-looking. I thought sending the male model to the moon as an astronaut was hilarious, because really, you know, if you watch old footage of astronauts, they weren't picked for their looks. They can look like anything, short, tall, funny-looking. They can have beady eyes or big noses, whatever. They're hired because they're pilots or scientists. So if you really want good press, you probably can't use a real astronaut. The characters in this movie were mostly just simple and very, very simple one-dimensional characters, with the exception of our female protagonist, who realized that Nazism is not the religion of love, and the swastika is not the symbol of happiness and justice. She at least learned a little bit in a funny way. There were some funny touches with the characters, too. My German has gotten so much worse over the years. It used to be kind of adequate. The initial Führer they have there on the moon, Kurzfleisch, I'm reading several things at once. Kurzfleisch actually means short meat. I wonder if they were trying to insult something. They did imply he was compensating with his large space battle station. They also kind of seem to sporadically mix English and German in odd ways. There's a German word, wollen, that means I want, and if you say I want, you say ich will. But a lot of people make the mistake of translating that literally into English, like I will, and they actually did that over and over again in the movie. You know, the ship will fly. Well, no, it won't. What you're saying is the ship wants flying, and you used the wrong case there. But it was funny, and the characters were stereotypes, and I think to the extent that they did mangle the German, which wasn't much, it was meant to be funny, as the characters were swapping back and forth between English and German and being goofy. So I enjoyed it. I don't know if I'll have anything else to say, because the effects were really just all CGI. But fun night. NT5TM.
All right, thank you, Tony. Maybe there'll be others with inspirational things to say, and you'll be back in it. But I have got you marked for the second round. Next up, KF5TSK, Burl. Your thoughts on characterization from KE5I6.
This is KF5TSK. Well, I found the characters interesting. It wasn't that they really had, they were great actors. It was more of, they kind of played a part. It was, like I said, it was multiple, plots to it. You had the comedy, you had the real military side of it. One of the things that I kept looking at in this movie is they had several scenes where they showed the president's glasses. Multiple times they would, show her face, and they were sure putting the glasses down, and I kept wondering, it was like, gee, what are those Google glasses? Because they seem to emphasize that a lot. But, overall, the movie, moved along, had a lot of action scenes. It was pleasant. It was not boring. I kept wondering if somewhere the ladies were going to make coffee and sandwiches. They didn't, but I thought everyone kind of played a part. May not have been the greatest. K5 TSK back to net.
Okay, Tony? Tony? Burrow. Sorry, Tony was the last guy. I got Burrow. Okay. Thank you, Burrow. Next up, NG5Y. Alan, your thoughts on characterization on the movie Iron Sky from 2012. Go ahead.
Well, I was kind of confused about the Oberfuhrer, or I'm not quite sure what his title was, but the Wolfgang Korch, and I can't say his last name, the gentleman that was the leader of the Nazis at the beginning. His whole character just seemed kind of strange, which I guess that was the whole point. And the heroine in the movie was kind of interesting in that she didn't seem to be affiliated with any one guy. Seemed kind of out there. The James Washington character, played by Christopher Kirby, I thought he did a really good job of playing his character. And the whole comment about they sent a model to the moon was kind of funny. And that's about all I have. NG5Y back to net.
Okay, thank you, Alan. Next up is Miss Brenda, WB50ZL. Your thoughts on characterization?
This is WB50ZL. Well, a lot of the characters were caricatures. The old Fuhrer was just a megalomaniac and just power hungry, and then the new Fuhrer was ruthless and arrogant and very power hungry. And his girlfriend, it was sort of a sweet, submissive person, despite being really smart. I think she kind of grew into the part as time went on. She changed her hairstyle for sure, and kind of came into her own. But a lot of these, it's like this is a type of person with a lot of these characters. I thought they were all pretty good, though. It helped move the idea along, the story idea, that he had caricatures. I'm still troubled by the whole idea of Nazis. It's like, why, they have a new Fuhrer? Did they do that right after they went up there? You know, why? I think it was a lot of confusion between their allegiance to Hitler and having this new Fuhrer, and they would have to know that Hitler would be dead by now. So, you know, and he's telling the girl, you know, we're going to produce these wonderful Aryan babies. Well, that's all there was up there. I mean, why would they even be talking about that? So, let's see, what else? Love the Zeppelins. I know that's not characters, but I'm a big Zeppelin fan anyway. And the technology was weird. It was very dark. But I'll save that. Back to net, WB50ZL.
All right, thank you, Miss Brenda. Let's see. Next up is K5A&E. That is Kane. Your thoughts on characterization from KE5ICX?
I have to agree with Brenda that these are definitely caricatures, and that the characters themselves are extreme in their representation of these ideas they're trying to share. You know, they've got, you know, from the President of the United States to, you know, her advisor guy that's always there, and, you know, all the Nazi characters as well. They're over the top, and that's good with this comedy, because that's the whole point, is to make things as crazy and ridiculous as possible, you know, as opposed to trying to make things, you know, maybe more believable or something along those lines. You really got to draw out those extremes to make the jokes ring even harder, and they did a good job with that. There are a lot of characters in this movie, and sometimes it gets kind of difficult having, you know, decently designed characters, you know, without, you know, leaving a lot out there, you know, unsaid or untold, you know. So having so many characters that are so, you know, well done is challenging, and I think they did a good job. I do have to say as well, they did a good job casting the characters. A lot of these actors and actresses definitely look, you know, like they fit that part, and they did a good job filling out those roles as well. All the acting performances were top-notch, in my opinion, and yeah, I mean, like the guy that was, you know, the new Fuhrer really looked like a guy that would be a new Fuhrer kind of guy, and you know, yeah, they did an excellent work. They did an excellent job on this work, and yeah, sad to hear that the sequel didn't pan out as well, but yeah, this is K5A&E, back to net control.
Thank you, Kane, and this is KE5ICX. My name is Tom. I'm net control for tonight's Afterglow Movie Net. We are discussing Iron Sky from 2012, the very strange comedy about boom Nazis. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what did you think about characterizations from Iron Sky?
KG5BZW, I'm going ahead and use that Lincoln. Yeah, I'm not sure I can really add much to what everybody else has said. Definitely, I spent a lot of time in this past break from, my break, trying to figure out, because the pseudo kid, I hope I'm pronouncing his name. He's like one of those actors that you see a lot, it seems. And I don't know, it seems like the most recognizable of all of these actors. I don't know if Christopher Curry's been in anything, although apparently he was in one of the Matrix movies. Anyway, besides the point, definitely caricatures the Caleb character is obvious. And because it's parody, a lot of stuff, the characters are kind of, I don't want to say reduced, but and sometimes they are, I guess, reduced to acting out their part in a particular thing they're parodying, but it's still, the mix I thought was pretty good. I don't think I'm pretty sure I didn't recognize all of them as they were parodying. I did see a little glimpses of Strange Love. I mentioned Downfall, which they spent a whole. I was kind of shocked at how much they stole from the meme, the famous meme based on the movie Downfall. With that character, which I don't know if that was who that be a parody of or not, but yeah, I really wanted to figure out what Otto was a parody of, or just if it's just he has that look of a bad guy or something, and they just he fits and boom. What else? And I don't know. I can't really think of anything. The characters, the actors playing the characters to the part, oh God, they did as good as anyone could. It's definitely a kind of one of those things like you mentioned. There can be a fine line between parody and something that may actually look like it's making small actions. I think they tread the line such that, or they tread safely that this I hate to call it silly, but this is silly. We are not depicting, like real. We're making fun of stuff, basically, is what I'm getting at. And they made a lot of people. And that's all I've got right now. KG5BCW.
All right, thank you, Jay. And I know what you're trying to express. I'll explain it in just a minute. My thoughts on the same thing. Does anyone else want to check in? I'm at the bottom of the list here before we continue. We are talking about Iron Sky from 2012, the movie about moon Nazis coming and invading Earth. Does anyone else want to join us? Even if you haven't seen the movie, it's okay. You can check in and say you haven't seen the movie. Just let us know you're out there. Please come with your call sign, name, where you're transmitting from, and did you see Iron Sky from 2012?
The BT9V, Michael Plano. No, I didn't get a chance to see it, but based on the things I've heard so far, I'm going to go back and watch it, I think. It sounds like it's interesting.
All right, we got another one. That would be Michael over in Plano. He didn't see it, but he wants to see it. I think you'd enjoy it. It's one of those films that you cringe and laugh at the same time. Here's the thing. There were some interesting lines. One of the things is that everybody, all of the Nazis say Heil Hitler, right? Well, you say, well, there's a new, who was it? Wutführer Wolfgang Kornfleisch, as Tony mentioned, what was it? Short meat. I thought that was what was funny about it is that when Klaus Adler took over and he wanted everybody to say Heil Adler, they all said Hitler, and I think the previous guy, Kornfleisch, also felt the same way. They said Heil Hitler. Well, okay, you got to remember too, the same thing happened in Rome when Caesar took power. Every person who came after him was called Caesar, So Hitler would be Hitler, I didn't see that as a problem, except that it was funny that it was annoying to everybody that they couldn't be called anything other than Hitler. So that was okay, and that was cute little aside, I thought. All right, you have to admit that the President of the United States, who was never named, but apparently, obviously an example of Sarah Palin at the time when, during the presidential run. And I think the election was 2018. Was that what it was? I'm trying to remember now. I think the election was supposed to be in 2018, the re-election in 2018. So, that it didn't match up in any way, shape, or form, but she did a pretty good job. And you got to remember, this is an international film. It actually came out of Europe, so their view of the United States is going to be rather different from our own view for many different reasons. They don't live in the United States, and limited experience probably. Most of the people that saw the film, but. And it is, in and of itself, the American side looks as a very comic book, just like the Nazis are. Let's see, other characters. Klaus Adler was good. He played the zealous Nazi in it, and he was quite entertaining. And Renate Richter, played by Julia Dietz, she was quite good in her role, plus she was there as sort of a visual cue for the males in the audience, I think. Dr. Richter obviously was playing sort of an Einstein type of character, although he couldn't hold a candle to Einstein, especially since he couldn't get that darn USB thing to charge up the phone. But who's to say, right? So I liked it. I really did. I think the actors were well placed in the roles that they did, and it was kind of a very easy thing to watch in the sense that the characters were, well, maybe as the script was written, not believable, but doggone, we've seen a lot of films where the acting is wooden to the point where it burst into flames on stage because it was inling. So I'm thinking for a semi-professional production, although it was in the millions, I guess, for the film itself, I thought it did really well. I really rather enjoyed it, to be honest with you. And the characters really helped pull it off. I think that was a big deal, and I think that made a big difference in making this film good. And I think that, too, from the previous film in the Pickering, which was good, I enjoyed it, but it had very slow moments. It's obvious they learned from that production and decided to bring in better actors. That film had problematical acting in it, but again, they didn't have a production, the kind of money they did in this. They could hire real actors for this. And acting is really important. I mean, come on, kids. How many of the Star Trek productions have we seen through the years where the acting was substandard? Nearly all of them. And this showed that you can do a pretty darn good job with good actors or ones that can go ahead and do their job. So I thought overall it looked well. It came off okay by my estimation, especially for an over-the-top comedy. All right, let me see. It's 11:42. We still have time. The next section is special effects. I think we can do 2 rounds, so let's go with special effects. And I'm going to call on Bill, N5BB. Bill, are you back? Did you fall asleep? And do you have anything to say about Iron Sky, up to and including special effects from KE5ICX? All right, I think we may have lost Bill. I will call on him one more time in a little bit. NT5TM, Tony, you still there? You got any other comments on special effects? I think you did not, but if you do, now's the time from KE5ICX.
I don't, but thank you. I've enjoyed hearing everyone else's comments on the movie. We all see things, differently from one another, so that's been fun. NT5TM, good night.
All right, Tony, thanks for participating, and we'll give the movie here in a little bit. And by the way, when I do send out the next movie information, all you have to do is go to Afterglow Movie, that's 2 words, over on the Facebook page, or send me an email at my call sign, Kilo Echo 5, India Charlie X-Ray, KE5ICX@yahoo.com, and say you want to be part of the Afterglow Movie Net. I will send you the links and information on next week's movie. If you don't want to do that, of course, go to the Afterglow Movie Facebook page. It's Afterglow with 1 word, movie is the other, and just sign up. All right, next is, who do we have next? Oh, Burrow, KF5TSK. Burrow, what did you think about the special effects on the film from KE5ICX?
This is KF5TSK. Well, I think the special effects were good. I was, really looking to, see the detail in some of the battle scenes, and compared to other movies we've seen, that I was impressed with it. But this thing that they had zeppelins which contained flying saucers and nuclear bombs, and they were going to drag these asteroids to Earth. It just seemed like, it was mind-boggling. To think that, they could do all of that. They set up there on all these years and never once, looked to see what the Earth was doing. And then all of a sudden it's like, yeah, let's go take over the Earth. Overall, I'd say that all of the special effects were good. That big ship that they had with all the gears and whatever, I was impressed with that too, because I know they weren't, connected, but it looked like it really did something with all those gears turning and the I guess supposedly what it looked like on the inside of the moon. KF5TSK back to net.
All right, thank you, Burl. And yeah, well, I'll make my comments here at the end. NG5Y, Alan, your thoughts on the special effects on this?
I thought the special effects were very good. My only disappointment was they supposedly launched nukes against the Nazi moon base, and They must have had the yield dialed back to nothing because totally didn't look like a nuclear explosion on the moon to me. But at the end of the movie, in the credits, they were showing us go to war with each other and nuking each other's cities, and those explosions look from space what you'd expect it to look like. So I don't know. But overall, I'd give it an A+. Back to net, NG51.
All right, thank you, Alan. You make a good point on that one. What happened to the special effects? Well, who knows? WE50ZL, Miss Brenda, your thoughts on the special effects for Iron Sky from 2012 from KE5ICX.
This is WB50ZL. They were a lot of fun. It was a good romp. As I said earlier, I love the Zeppelins and a lot of fairly creative war machines and spaceships. Not just the typical, cigar with legs on it. They obviously put a lot into this, clearly. Yeah, I wasn't too sure about this nuclear war thing, what all that meant, and the idea of below the horizon, so we'll just blow a chunk out of the moon and then we'll aim for the Earth, and it'll be there when our missile gets there. Clearly not understanding astronomy. What else is special effects? I thought most of it was well executed. It was all, I wouldn't exactly say believable, but it was not hokey for the most part. And, good looking sets, I'll say that. All right, back to net, WB50ZL.
Thank you, Brenda. Next up, K5ANE Kane. Your thoughts on special effects from KE5ICX.
Once again, like characterization, I think the special effects is a part of what made this movie so awesome in a way. It really kind of sells this idea that there really are Nazis on the moon, and they just did this incredible amount of detail on all these different scenes, and it's a really good job in my opinion, even though it's all practically just CGI everywhere, and I imagine like 90% of the movie was shot in front of a green screen. It blended in pretty well, and it was also interesting that every single time they're on the moon, it's always this like very grayscale-ish kind of view to it compared to when they're back on Earth and everything's bright, normally saturated. All the scenes on the moon are this really unsaturated kind of view, and it's all just gritty and dark and black and white almost, which kind of makes sense. And with that whole idea that their technology has been stuck in the 1940s, they did an excellent job showcasing that, and that I got all these big giant massive machines and tons of gearing and all this big giant chain drives for everything, whereas if you were to build something like the Götterdämmerung today, it would be lots of hydraulics, lots of motors and things like that would be locally driving things, as opposed to needing this single giant power drive shaft thing that's then turning tons of gears all over this thing, and needing to put that power everywhere. You would just have your main energy source, and just have tons of cables and wires and whatnot to actually do the final drive. It's a final drives, or as they said, hydraulics. It almost makes me wonder then what the state of hydraulics and that kind of technology was in the 1950s. I mean, clearly they had hydraulics and understood like principles of hydraulics. I mean, you know, we've understood the principles of hydraulics for a long time, but it's kind of interesting, and it's always these big giant gears and stuff that you see in, well, at least in this movie. This is K5A&E, back to net control.
Thank you, Kane. And, yep, I get it. KG5BZWJ near Weatherford. Your comments on special effects. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
KG5BZW. Yeah, I would agree. The special effects are part of what makes this film work. Especially, you know, there were bad special effects, but they were intended to be bad. Like if we're talking about practical effects, oh my gosh, the juice that they injected our model actor to make him Aryan, and it's like he doesn't look like anybody. It's definitely you know, they did it over the top, and it just made it weird, and I don't know. I thought it was really weird and not really exactly appropriate for anybody, but which is kind of the point. And then, okay, so I mean, that's the one instance of you know, purposely kind of bad. The weapons, the whole thing about the mega weapon, which calls back to some silly things about what Hitler was obsessed with in World War II, about making bigger, supposedly better things, and of course a lot of them, the things that had ended up being pretty much worthless, but that's not near here or there. You know, the big giant rotary engine aspect of that thing did make it cool looking. It of the meg. I'm calling it a mega weapon because I can't remember what they call it. Did make it interesting to look at, and the I'm just going to skip ahead. The spacecraft of all the nations. I love the mirror. That the secret mirror station is just that's so over the top as well. And all the Finland actually not. I mean, maybe having a space program but not having any weapons is kind of funny. I don't know. I'm going away from special effects here. Oh gosh, it kept with the overall nature of the film, which is over the top and kind of silly. So yeah, I'm sure there's more to be said. I can't think of it though. KQ5BCW.
Okie dokie, thank you, Jay. And yeah, all right. Let's see. Let me go ahead and give my comments on special effects, and I'll open it up for any and everything after this. I thought they were well done. I didn't mind them at all. I love the 1940-ish technologies and the updates and all of that. I thought that was quite fun. Probably something that was kind of strange that I also noticed this in this new series called Away that I'm not overly happy with. It's a Hallmark Channel in-space adventure type of thing. And it showed up here, and that is the rotating rams. These are the spacecraft that have these counter-rotating rams on them that are meant to create artificial gravity. It looks great and super cool. The only thing is what do you need artificial gravity to go 3 days to Earth? or to the moon. That's nuts. That's a tremendous waste of mass to do that. If you're going to Mars or you're going to Jupiter or whatever, as we see in 2001, then having some sort of a weight-generating system or gravity-generating system is in order. But for something that's between the Earth and the Moon, nah, I don't think so. But that's just the sidelight. Everything else about it I loved. I loved the 1940s sensibility about it. The motorcycle with the sidecar, you know they're not taking it seriously when they do that. But it looks pretty darn good on screen. I like that a lot. So overall, it had the kind of vibe and feel that you were expecting. And I thought that the special effects were well executed because of it. So I'll give it a thumbs up on that. Those effects, we're talking 8 years ago now. That's like 2 generations of computers at least have come along, and now amateur productions with no money are producing something along those lines. But still, you got to design it, you got to make it look good, and you got to make it believable. And I thought overall it did. Yes, everything was shot behind a green screen. That's obvious because you can't build any of this stuff any other way. But the way you build it and how you make it look authentic is important. You can overdo it. We've seen movies like that, especially these superhero movies. Everything is way overdone to the point. It not only is fantasy, it's ridiculous fantasy. People jumping above, airplanes as they come at them. What was it, the Star Wars film where what's her name jumps up and somehow avoids the speeding spacecraft at low speed? No, that's not going to happen. Come on, people. Or the what is the plane series, the race car series with people jumping from car to car at really fast speeds. The Fast and the Furious Part 193, I think they're up to. Those are pretty bad. All of that is kind of nuts. This one maintains some sense of reality in a crazy world. So I'm okay with it. Oh, one comment. I see this at the bottom. It says here, Nazis, the Iron Dream, a similarly titled novel by Norman Spinrad, also concerning Nazism. Norman Spinrad's still around. He was the guy who wrote for Star Trek. The Doomsday Machine, if I remember correctly. Good writer. Still around with us, I believe. I'll have to go back and look for sure. Just an aside. Yep, he's still alive, born 1940. Okay, let's do this. I'm going to go ahead and open it up to anybody, any comments of any kind. Please come now with your call sign, and I'll go down the list. All right, we're all talked out, no doubt. I'm trying to find the information for next week. I remember basically, but I got to still check, so hold on. All right, sometimes I make a mistake. I can't remember exactly, so I have to go and look. All right, so next week is, everybody write this down, it's a movie you've never seen before because it's only been out about 2 weeks now. It is a fan production called Star Trek First Frontier. That will be October 3rd, I believe it is, October 3rd. Next week, I previewed a little bit of it. It's not bad at all. And then the following week, if you're interested, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure from 1989. That one might be fun to do. I think it's actually kind of a fun film. Okay, until next time, next week, same bat time, same bat channel. This is KE5ICX, and I'm closing the net at 0001 continuity 0. See y'all later. KE5ICX clear.